Hussey, welcome to the Inside Edge podcast. I'm very excited to have you on. When I was a little girl growing up in the northern suburbs of Perth, I rolled down to my local cricket club and I distinctly remember there was a wall with the state players that had played for Whitford's Junior Cricket Club. And I remember a little skinny young man on the wall there and named Michael Hussey, and I recognise the name of the WA team as well. And ever since then, I don't know what it was, watching you're one of the guys on my bedroom wall when I was growing up. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thank you very much, Barbie. Yeah, it's great to be on. Good memories, coming through the Whitford's Junior Cricket Club there. Some of the times there that actually really shaped my whole career. I guess some of the formative coaches and then going up through the Wanneroo District Cricket Club and from whatever happened after that. So it's great to reminisce and thanks for having me on.
No worries. And every kid in our neighbourhood had one goal, and that was to earn a famous baggy cap, the Woodford's Junior Cricket Club baggy blue. So some work long and hard for it, but is it true that you got yours in your first ever game?
It is true, and I was actually a bit dirty because the week before the first season, we actually had a practice game, and I managed to get 50 in the practice game, and I was a bit angry because they wouldn't give me my baggy blue cap. For scoring 50 in that practice game, I had to wait for the following week. It's funny how you have those goals. When I heard about that, if you took 5 wickets or scored 50 runs, you earned yourself a baggy blue cap. And as a young 10-year-old, that's all I wanted in life at that stage. It wasn't about winning for the team or, doing the team things or, the little 1%ers for the team. My whole goal in life was get that baggy blue cap. And, I still remember I had the shorts on with the white socks pulled up and just being so determined to try and hang in there and bat all day. I certainly wasn't a power player or anything like that. I was very small, very skinny. I didn't have many shots at all, but certainly had determination to stay out there in the middle and bat for as long as I could.
So you were always pretty intense from a young kid then.
Yeah, I know. I look back now and I sort of cringe at probably how intense I was. And look, to be honest, it's a positive in a lot of ways, but it certainly had its detrimental effects as well throughout my career. And I'm sure we'll touch on it a bit later on, but that sort of level intensity, it can wear you down after a while, and certainly have a detrimental effect on your performance. So I just love the game so much. I love batting. I love just being in the contest. I just love the game right from ball one, watching it on TV, playing probably the most intense games I ever played were in the backyard with my brother Dave. I think if there was a spirit of cricket, we would have been banned for life. There was cheating, there was fighting, there was swearing, punch-ups, everything going on there. So that was probably the toughest cricket of my life.
I love that. And you mentioned that you were a lot smaller than all the other boys growing up. And then you add that with the battles with your brother Dave. How did that impact you as you moved up into senior cricket?
Well, I think in hindsight, it really helped me a lot. It was frustrating because I couldn't hit the ball as far as some of the other kids. They could just come out and smash fours and sixes. It seemed like with ease, whereas I could hardly get the ball off the square. Most of my scoring shots were little deflections behind point or down to fine leg or drop and run. That was pretty much all I had. But what I would say is one of my first coaches at that Whitford's Junior Cricket Club, he said to me, "Yeah, you're not as strong as everyone else, but if you just work on a really good, solid technique and a good defence, then as you get older and stronger and the bowling starts getting better, you'll be able to, hang in there a bit longer. Whereas some of these other kids that don't have such great techniques, they'll generally fall by the wayside." So I guess that's all I did, really. I just focused on, good defence and a solid technique. And he was exactly right. As I got older and the ball started moving a fair bit more, I was able to sort of hang in there and survive that, better than some of the other guys. And then obviously, as you grow and get a little bit stronger, you can start adding sort of different shots to your game. So it was good in that respect. But it was also good on the mental side because I could never, ever get complacent. I always felt a little bit inferior to everyone else because I didn't have the power, I didn't have the shots, I didn't have the scoring ability. And so as far as, you talk about that intensity, I was always felt like I had to work twice as hard as anyone else just to be able to compete with these guys. And I think having that sort of, trait, built into my psyche right from the start, certainly helped me, just work extremely hard on my game all the way through.
Yeah, and that's something that became a bit of your trademark in terms of that ability to work so hard and grind it out. And it took you a long time to eventually get your baggy green, but we will come back to that. But just on that element of working hard, do you think there's a line where it crosses over into being unhealthy or perfectionistic?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's something that I've reflected on quite a lot. Probably more so now. I I didn't actually see it as a chore or a sacrifice or anything. I just loved training. I loved working so hard in my game. I wanted to get better and better every day. I wanted to try and perfect the art of batting. I knew I never was going to be able to. Even when I get into my late 30s, there was no chance I was ever going to perfect it. But just striving towards that perfection was just so motivating. So I really enjoyed training, but not just batting. I wanted to try and be the complete player. I wanted to be fit and strong. I wanted to have great mental skills. I wanted to, make sure my diet was good. I made sure I was sleeping right. As well as the cricket skills of batting, fielding, and even, back in the early days, doing a bit of bowling as well. So I just loved everything about just getting better. And looking back now, I think as a young player, it was really important to I guess, work extremely hard and in some respects maybe too hard, because what that did was it built up this enormous base to my game. One from a cricket skills perspective, but also a fitness perspective as well. So building up that base, I think, really helped me at the back end of my career. If I had an injury or I had a bit of a, sort of a down patch of form, it didn't seem to take me too long to get my standards back up to where they needed to be, because I had that big base behind me. Now, you talk about that sort of line of, going too far, and I certainly I went over that line, I must admit. So when I started playing for Western Australia, I was still in that young phase where I just wanted to train so hard and probably put a bit too much pressure on myself as well. And when things just started to battle a little bit, my only default was to go back to, okay, I've got to work harder. I've got to train harder. I've got to put more pressure on myself. And that just sort of kept building up on me. And there was that sort of breaking point where it just had this huge detrimental effect on my game. I was just too intense. I was too single-minded on just one thing. And yeah, my performances did become very inconsistent. And I ended up getting dropped from the WA team, which was a real hammer blow, because I was just that one step away from reaching my ultimate dream, which was playing for Australia and wearing that baggy green cap. And it did really make me sort of take stock and sort of think, well, hang on, I'm holding on way too tight here. I'm doing too much. I need to sort of relax a little bit more. I need to have more balance in my life, and I need to be doing other things in my life, take my mind away from cricket at times. And it's just funny, as soon as I took that pressure off myself, went back to enjoying the game and playing my way, and funnily enough, that's when my consistent performances returned. And funny enough, that's when my opportunity came to play for Australia.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like I think you're the sixth or seventh guest we've had on the podcast so far, and every single person without fail has said the same thing. It's like they
Is
work
that right?
really hard. I didn't actually intend that from the start. But every single person without fail has said, we've worked really, really hard, built my base. I think that's important, because you can't just go with a full enjoyment. Like, yeah, I'm just going to see what happens and let go. To be elite and to find that sort of mastery of craft, you have to do the work. But everyone's hit that point and a breaking point where it's almost got to some form of line, and then they've realised actually probably pushed it too far, scaled it back, and worked out what the processes are to actually have that balance. So if we just sort of unpack that a little bit more, when you were prior to getting dropped in that period of inconsistency for WA, would you say that your focus was slightly different? Like, did you lean more towards the outcome? Were you comparing yourself to others? Were any of those traits around?
Probably both. The outcome I wanted so desperately was to play for Australia. That was the big sort of goal, and I was just single-mindedly focused towards that. But my first 3 or 4 seasons for Western Australia were really, really good. I'd scored lots of runs, and I felt like I was so close, but I just couldn't quite get an opportunity to play for Australia. There was, I think there was, when I first started, Mark Taylor and Michael Slater batting so well at the top of the order, and then Justin Langer joined Matthew Hayden, and those guys performed so well. So there was never an opportunity came up. They never seemed to get injured. So I thought, what do I need to do? I need to do something more. I need to do something extra. I need to, put more on myself. And I remember looking at the Australian team at that time, and they were all very aggressive players. Matty Hayden, Ricky Ponting, Adam Gilchrist, even Justin Langer turned himself in from a bit of a nicker and nudger into more of an attacking player as well. And I thought, right, well, that's obviously what the national selectors want. They want guys that are attacking, scoring quickly. And my game wasn't like that. My game was based around patience, batting time, working the ball, running hard, things like that. I wasn't the overly aggressive batsman. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to change my game a little bit here. I'm going to try and put more pressure on the bowlers, play more shots, show the selectors that I can be that aggressive player that they want to see. And then hand in hand with that, I thought I've got to train harder. I've got to want it more. And you can just see what was going to happen. It was just going to be this explosion of poor performances. And that's exactly what happened. But it's good to go through that as well, because that's part of the journey. Like what you said, a lot of people that you've spoken to have had that build up. There's been that breaking point, but you almost need to go through that to really learn those deep lessons in yourself. And so coming to that season when I did end up getting dropped for WA, I almost just gave up the hope of playing for Australia. I thought, well, you know what? It's not going to happen. Stuff it. Let's not worry about that anymore. So I took my focus away from the outcome. And then I said, okay, well, let's just go back to playing my way. Just, enjoy your cricket, playing, your way, playing with WA, having fun with your teammates, enjoying your teammates' success. That's what I played the game at the start anyway. I just wanted to enjoy it, enjoy playing and enjoy playing with my teammates. So, and it's funny, as soon as I did that and took that pressure off myself, focused on my process and what I needed to do to play well, then that's when my consistency returned. And yeah, as I said, that's when I got my chance to play for Australia. And I guess from there, the challenge for me was when I got to play for Australia was to maintain that mentality. It wasn't to try and change and think, okay, now I'm playing for Australia, I've got to try harder or do more. No, I didn't. I just needed to keep, sticking to my process.
Yeah, and so with your processes and the things you discovered through that journey, what were the basics? So if we start with more of a mechanical point of view and your batting mechanics or your technique, what were those basics that you found that you kept coming back to over and over again?
Well, I think from a technical perspective, my technique evolved a lot over time. I think I started, I guess the main sort of technical things were, go right back to the under-12s when, just told me to work on my defence, the coach, and a good solid technique. That was probably the start of it. And then as I got through with Wanneroo, I worked with a guy called Ian Kevin, who was my batting coach for pretty much my whole career. And we just basically did the basics again, the basics of driving the swing plane, coming through the drives, and we just hit balls. He didn't sort of try and talk technique too much. It was more about just letting me figure it out for myself, and we just pounded down the hours. And then we also played some county cricket. And one area of my game that I really struggled with was, for most of my career was when the ball was swinging back in. I'm quite tall, I guess. I've got long legs and a short body. So I used to always have my bat on the ground when I was batting for the first half of my career. And that caused my head just to sort of just tilt over to the offside a little bit. And so anytime the ball swung back in, I was in trouble because I was quite often falling across to the offside, and I'd get out LBW. I'd miss a lot of runs off my pads as well. So started working with my coach in England, and he's, the vogue in England was for batsmen to stand up, with their bat in the air. And so he said, why don't you give this a try just to help you access those straighter balls? And I found it really helped me a lot. So I decided, and it sort of helped my body shape. I'm not saying it's the same for everyone, but for me, having long legs, to be able to stand up high, it kept my eyes nice and level. And so from a technical perspective, that became my focus now for the rest of my career. Just making sure my head was in the right position in my stance, and my eyes were level, and my head going towards the bowler at all stages. So that's all I really tried to focus on from then on. All the groundwork of technique and basics have been done in the past with Ian Kevin, and my Bob Mitchell was one of my first coaches for Whitfords. And now it was just about getting that head position right. And then probably as I got sort of halfway through my career, I really started to value more the mental side of the game. And I believe as you go up the levels, that the mental side of the game is the difference between the average players and the great players. So I through going through that long journey, a pre-ball routine, and this pre-ball routine that it took me about 5 years to develop, but once I'd sort of worked out what worked for me and what my best looked like and felt like, I just literally stuck to that through thick and thin. Every single training session, my whole focus would be on my routine. Every ball that I faced in a game was about my pre-ball routine, and I can take you through my routine. It was a 4-step routine. So if the bowler's at the top of his mark, I'd have a quick checklist in my stance. So just make sure that my feet were right, my hands were right, shoulder in a good position. And then the last one was make sure my eyes are nice and level and ready to go. So that was the first step, just a quick checklist. Second step, as you alluded to earlier, I was very intense, and I tried so hard and I wanted it so much. And even just saying it now, I can already feel the tension in my arms, start. So the second step was to, okay, relax your arms. One deep breath, and just relax. The third step is about clearing all that junk out of your mind, all those doubts, all those negative thoughts, all the clouds, what the pitch is doing, what the score is, the situation of the game. I'm going to get dropped. What are the commentators saying? All that rubbish that goes through your mind. It was to, okay, now I need to clear that out. And then the last step, just as the bowler's about to let go of the ball, is just see that ball, see the ball out of the hand and let your instincts take over. So some people out there might find that really complicated. It was simple for me, and it was just sort of ingrained in my routine day after day. Other people had much simpler routines. I think of Ricky Ponting, all he used to say was, watch the ball. And that was it. That's all he needed to click himself into gear. But for me, I was more that 4-step process, ball after ball after ball after ball. And it really helped me immeasurably.
That's unreal. And how did you, so within that routine, it's actually fairly similar to mine, both probably being overthinkers of the game at times. But what I find difficult, and also talking to a lot of teammates, is that ability to actually, so when you talk about the relaxation, to actually relax when you're under pressure, and then the other side of it, to clear that junk out of your mind, because it's easy to have that as a framework. And it is a great framework, and you can repeat that at training over and over again. But when you're actually in the heat of battle, how did you train yourself to actually execute particularly the relaxation and that clearing the junk out of your mind section?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it probably comes with practice. But I don't know. I think the relaxation part, mainly out of my arms. I used to just focus on my arms, because I could feel my arms tensing up, particularly my forearms. So it was a case of, okay, just relax. And then I can feel myself taking a deep breath now as well. So one sort of breath just to help let some of that tension go. And then it was almost like relax your hands, relax your arms. And that's all I'd sort of say to myself. And then as far as the junk in my mind goes, I guess sometimes I used to visualize a train coming into the station, picking up all the thoughts and then sort of taking it out. And I wish I could say I was consistent with that, but I wasn't. And I wish I could say that I always got the thoughts out of my mind, but I certainly didn't. But I think thinking back now, if you're thinking about one thought, then it stops you thinking about all these other things. So the mind can only focus on one thing at a time. Well, my wife will tell me she can do 2 or 3 things at once, but I can only focus on one thing at a time. So whatever thought that I put in my mind, that my whole concentration can be on that, and it can't be on anything else. So I was almost like cheating myself a little bit. I was saying, yeah, take all those negative thoughts out of my mind, but I was probably just changing my focus onto, okay, clear your mind, clear. And if I think about clear, I'm not thinking about what the pitch is doing, getting dropped, the score in the game, the pressure of the game. I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm just thinking clear. And then I'm just thinking, see the ball. So clear and see are probably the 2 key words for me there in stopping me, I guess, from thinking about other things.
Yeah, there's some pretty sound sports psychology principles in there. Like you talk a lot about mindfulness principles or meditation. And there's also that ability, it may have actually been Diesel Williams that taught me the thing of don't think of a pink elephant. So
yeah.
you automatically think of a pink elephant. So you can't tell yourself
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
clear your mind, because you've got to actually plant something in that to focus on, and that's what helps you not think. So it's
Yeah.
impossible to actually not think. Um, a lot of the players coming through now have access to sports psychologists. Back then, it wasn't so big in terms of the meditation and mindfulness and movement. Did you have any training from a sports psychology point of view?
Yeah, I was very fortunate actually. We had a guy mixed up with a Western Australian setup. I was first introduced, I think, around the under 15s or under 17s sort of level. A guy called Sandy Gordon, who was a lecturer at UWA, and he was with the team through the juniors, but then also with the state team as well. So he was absolutely fantastic in educating me, educating on concentration, goal setting, routines, visualization. We didn't do a lot of the mindfulness stuff, which is pretty important these days. But I think visualization probably goes hand in hand a little bit with that, just getting an education, from a young age about those things, and then I had to, I guess, put it into practice, out there in the middle. So it took years to develop. And look, when I talk about my 4-step routine and how it took me 5 years to develop, it honestly did. I guess that the process I went through with that was that if I had a performance where I batted, just felt like I was just in the zone, where everything just flowed, and I just batted perfectly, I took out a piece of paper at the end of that day, and I just, anything that I could think of, I just wrote down on a piece of paper. In the week leading up to the game, how I slept, what did I do at training, what did I eat, what did I do, in the warm up of the match. How did I feel? How did I sleep the night before? How many hours? What was I thinking when I walked out to bat? When I was out there batting, what was I thinking about? Anything I could think of, just spewed it all down on this piece of paper and put it in a drawer. And then, it might be sort of 6 months, it might even be a year later, where you get that perfect innings again, and everything just goes perfectly. I went through that same process once again, and I did this about four or five times. And at the end of those 4 or 5 times, I opened up the drawer, pulled out the 4 or 5 bits of paper, and lined them all up with each other. And I could see trends about what I did in the lead up to matches, but then more specifically during games, what I did when I played my best. So what my best looked like, what it felt like. And so then I could develop a bit of a pre-game routine, and as I said, more specifically, my pre-ball routine. And that's what I knew that I could just stick to through thick and thin. Even if I was getting some low scores, it didn't matter. I know this works for me in the past. This is what my best looks like. And that psychology of just filling my head with, this is when you're playing at your best, this is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. And it's amazing how powerful that can be.
That's unreal. And if we fast forward a bit to your test debut, so at this point you'd scored well over 15,000 runs, including triple centuries in England, in Perth. You've pretty established as one of the best domestic players going around, probably just born in the wrong generation. You've got all these routines that have set you up really nicely, yet your test debut came pretty quickly and everything happened really fast. You find yourself over in Brisbane. How did your routines hold up when something you essentially spent your whole life working towards just comes at you really quickly? Did you find that what you'd worked on for so long on the mental side of the game actually hold up in that moment?
Well, the short answer is no. I'll be the first to admit I didn't handle the emotions of my first test well at all. But having said that, the emotions that I did feel, I wouldn't take back at all. It was a fantastic experience. But it was just so hard to control. It's something that I wanted for so long, so badly, and for it to actually, be happening, it was just hard to control everything. So, family were flying in left, right, and so there were so many distractions, I guess. I'd never felt the amount of media attention on myself before. It just seemed like there was cameras in my face everywhere I went, which I wasn't used to. Trying to organise family and friends and coaches and that to fly up to Brisbane. Unfortunately, I was just too focused on all the external stuff rather than just getting immersed in the game and immersed in my routine and feeling comfortable and confident with that. So, and that's okay. I didn't perform very well at all, but I remember sitting back there at the end of that test match and just thinking, wow, how lucky am I? One, I've been able to realise the childhood dream got a baggy green cap. I've been able to walk on the same field and play with and against some of the greatest players that have ever played the game, and like Warne and McGrath, Ponting, Brian Lara from the West Indies, and then be in the dressing room afterwards. And I do remember thinking, how good is this? But I also had that little hint of, I desperately want another chance, because I want to be able to show myself and the world that I can succeed at this level as well. So I had my fingers crossed that Justin Langer, who was injured, didn't come back too early so I could get another chance.
Yeah, I think it's easy to say in hindsight that, I wish I had focused on what I can control and the things I've been training, but I suppose it's just called being human. Like it's something you've worked towards for so long. All your family and friends are there. And I suppose that sort of perfectionist mindset that I talked about earlier is that's something we're seeing a lot coming through, especially in the younger females that I've been working with, in that it's like, I have to do this, I train this, and you get to the game and it's like, I have all these processes, which you do need, but sometimes something happens. It's called being human. That we have these things called emotions, which it's really interesting to see at the end of the game. You went to a place of almost perspective and gratitude, where it was just like, wow, this is incredible. What a great opportunity. But then also back to your strengths and your natural state, which was actually, I want to do this again. I want more. And then you went into Hobart and managed to score a ton in your second test. How was the transition in your mind and your processes between that first test and the second test?
Well, it was just a completely different feel altogether. So get down to Hobart, it was just quiet. I think I managed to come in a bit earlier because with Adam Gilchrist, because I don't know, we'd had a game for WA and the rest of the guys were coming in the following day. So it was just Gilly and I. We went for this lovely walk around Hobart, took in the sights, and it just, there was no attention on us. There was no cameras, quiet, sleepy little place. Coming into that second test match, or there was no attention on me whatsoever. So I could just focus on just my preparation, getting back into my zone again. And yeah, it was just a completely different feel. I didn't have any family or friends there. So it was just about the game. And thankfully it was a beautiful batting pitch, and we were able to bowl the West Indies out cheaply and get out there and you always need a bit of luck along the way, but it was fantastic. And I guess to score 100 in that game, it was the most unbelievable feeling. That's where I started to lose my emotions again, to be honest. And I cringe anytime I see a replay of my reaction when I score 100. It was basically sort of 10 years of pent up emotion just coming out all at once. That was the moment where I, as I said in Brisbane, that's where I wanted to prove to myself that I could succeed at that level. That was the moment where I thought, wow, I can do this. I'm good enough to play at this level. And so it was unbelievable feeling.
That's unreal. And then the next 3 to 4 years, you're averaging more than 80 in test matches. It's Bradman-like, on top of the world. You could say you've made it. You're making lots of runs, travelling with the Aussie team, living your dream. What was driving you then? So prior, like your drive, I want to play for Australia, I want that baggy green. You want it so bad. You hit a point, get dropped for WA, discover that ability to let go, enjoy, just come back to the present. Now you've made it again. What drives you to work so hard when you're in that bubble?
Well, I think it's a number of things, really. I was so fortunate to come into an Australian team that was so strong, and so they've been together for such a long period of time. They knew each other inside and out. The relationships in the team were really strong. To be honest, it was one of the first times in my career that I didn't feel a lot of pressure. It was just about going out there and just playing and enjoying it. I was living the dream. So I just wanted to, that was a motivating thing to start with, to be able to play with Shane Warne and Glenn McGrath, Ricky Ponting, Adam Gilchrist, these guys that are unbelievable players, just to see how they go about things. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm out there with them for one. But also, I wasn't putting any pressure on myself, because it was a case of, well, it doesn't really matter if I score runs. We've got Gilchrist, we've got Hayden, we've got Ponting, we've got all these great players that if I don't get any, someone's going to get them. So, and that did change later on in my career. So I'm sure I'll touch on that shortly. But then as far as what else kept motivating me, obviously scoring that first 100 in Hobart was, unbelievable experience. And I wanted to feel that again. I wanted to have that experience again. So that was a driving force. But then my goalpost probably changed a little bit as well. Once I started to feel like, okay, yes, I'm good enough to be here. Okay, why don't you try and be the best in the world? Not just, one of the best in Australia. Why can't you be one of the best in the world? And so, yes, that's sort of the end goal and the big goal, sort of, the outcome goal. And there's a lot of process that needs to go to get that. But yeah, instead of the goal being just to play for Australia, okay, well, yeah, we've got to change those goalposts again. So now it's like, okay, can you succeed at the level and score 100? Okay, yep, was able to do that. So can I now? What's the next goal? Okay, well, let's try and be the best in the world. And that for me was like a pretty big goal. And so I guess that was the other motivating force to try and become one of those sort of players.
Yeah, that's unreal. And then you kind of put your process. It sounds like you just really enjoy the process of achieving a goal, and it's not so much that end goal that is the be all and end all. But I reckon where you come, because the question I had was, how do you actually get into that state? Like, if you're working so hard all the time, how do you enjoy it? Like, where does it relent almost? But it sounds like you really just enjoyed that process of loving the game, of working hard and chasing after those goals.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And yeah, I did. And there was other people. I think Justin Langer, for example, he liked to chop and change things. He was always tinkering with his technique. He'd change his bat after every session, and I think, how do you do this, but he almost needed that to keep himself motivated, to be always working on something new, or always trying to tinker with this or change this. But that didn't work for me. I like to say, no, this is what I do. This is what I do when I play my best, and I'm going to stick to it through thick and thin, and believe in it and trust in it. And you talk about, enjoying that sort of process. I did, and I enjoyed the working hard and all that sort of stuff. But I think I also really enjoyed having the mental release after a game as well. So, sitting in the dressing rooms with my teammates after the game, letting the hair down a little bit, letting all the pressure off, just enjoying each other's company. That was a really important aspect for me personally. If I was just one of those players that was just intense with the game, then went home and into bed early, and then had to start up again the next day, I think there would have been another breaking point there. But I always had that little circuit break at the end of every match. Right, that's it. Let's just forget about cricket. Let's just muck around. Let's have a good laugh. Let's have a couple of beers together. Let's enjoy each other's company. And that mental release was really important for me. So then I could wake up the next day and say, okay, right, we've moved on from that. Let's start the process again.
That's huge. And I remember Justin Langer, when he came into the coach the WA setup, and one of their pillars or their values, normally see all sorts of things, relentless or determination or working hard and all this go, and one of his was celebrating success. And that's just huge. And that importance of just sitting back and taking it all in itself can be the best way to find that balance, as you mentioned earlier. So if we just shift a little bit to, you talked about how you played in some of the great Aussie teams and that camaraderie, won a lot of cricket, and that team unity that really was built over years and years of playing together. But now you're coaching in the IPL, and you're with the Chennai Super Kings at the moment, a few other T20 leagues, and you've played a lot in T20 leagues. How do you actually build that same sense of team culture when a team just literally is put together for 6 to 8 weeks and then disappears again?
Yeah, it's a good question and really challenging, I must admit. But I think that's where the Chennai Super Kings have been different to most other franchises. Well, maybe around the world, I'm not sure. But that they have had incredible faith and continuity with their team over, I think that the tournament's been going for 12 years. CSK were out for 2 years in the middle. But they've basically kept the core group of a team and the coaching staff, for that matter, for that entire period. And so there's, like with that great Australian team that I was lucky enough to play in, that they'd built up trust and relationships over a decade of playing together. They knew each other inside and out. I get the same sort of sense at CSK. We've had MS Dhoni's been the captain for the whole time. Stephen Fleming, apart from the first year, has been coach the whole time. They complement each other so well. The core players that are retained every single year are always sort of going to be there, or always been there all the time. that the owners and the management behind that they show incredible faith and trust in that process. That it feels like it's a family, and they often talk about the family. And so I think that's been a strength. We've even, when we play, even if we've had 3 or 4 losses in a row, they're very reluctant to change the team. Sometimes I'm thinking, crikey, we've got to try something. And they're like, no, it's okay. Don't worry. We'll stick with this guy. He'll come good. He's a good player. And sure enough, it always seems to work out in the end. So I've seen mistakes by other teams. They seem to chop and change so much with their teams. And they have a bad season, bang, they just seem to throw the whole team apart and start again. They change their coaching staff over and over, and they have to start that process again. It beggars belief, to be honest, because if you get yourself a good coach and a good group of players, let it evolve over time and let those relationships build and the trust build, the continuity build, and it's amazing how powerful it can be.
Yeah, and that's something that you did really well with Sydney Thunder, and Nick Cummins was gracious enough to introduce us, and he was general manager of Sydney Thunder where they had a shocking start to the Big Bash. I'm not sure they made any finals in those first few years, finished on the bottom of the ladder. Then yourself, Paddy Upton, Nick Cummins come in and completely shifted the culture or the recruitment strategies, and a whole lot going on there. And the next year, Sydney find themselves holding the Big Bash trophy. What did you guys implement, and what were the key reasons that shifted everything around?
Oh, it certainly didn't happen overnight. It was about a 3 or 4 year process to try and get up to the top. But it was one that I thoroughly enjoyed. Nick was instrumental. I'd say he was the driving force behind a lot of the good that happened. He obviously sorted out a lot of the stuff that happened behind the scenes and off the field, in getting the club sort of being loved again, and build a philosophy about us as players getting out into the community and engaging with the fans, and that was going to be a real sort of I guess different point of us, as opposed from other franchises. But he was also had a good touch of what needed to happen in the squad mentality as well. So we're both very much aligned on it was a great opportunity at Sydney Thunder. It to be involved with something that we could build together from the ground up. We couldn't do it ourselves. It had to be a collective, I guess, work in progress, and it did take time. But yeah, Paddy Upton came on board, and he was absolutely fantastic. He looked at things a bit differently, and I guess at that stage of my career, where for 20 odd years I'd just been doing the same things year in, year out, and Paddy came in with this different perspective about let's try and do things a bit differently. Let's train differently. Let's tap into the collective intelligence in the team rather than sort of relying on coaches. And it was just motivating to do things differently. But as far as the silver bullet or whatever, there wasn't anything really. It was just good old fashioned hard work for 3 or 4 years, building a good squad, believing in that sort of squad over a period of time, and as I said, building that continuity that eventually sort of led us to a fantastic result at the end. I guess the only thing that doesn't sit 100% right with me is that after we won that title, we weren't able to have that sustained success for a number of years. And that was my goal, I guess, to build something, or to be involved with helping to build something that could have sustainable success. And I do believe it's, the club's in a much better place than, obviously when it first started. But I'd love to see more titles and I guess just challenging, for the title, on a consistent basis, like the Melbourne Stars do. They're in the semi-finals every single season. That was my vision for Sydney Thunder. I obviously wanted to win a title, but I wanted us to be up there every single year. And we haven't quite been able to nail that yet, but I know there's people working extremely hard behind the scenes to hopefully achieve that.
Why do you think haven't quite nailed that yet?
It's a good question. Maybe I'm not sure. Maybe the continuity was broken up a little bit from that championship team that we had. We had an amazing team, Andre Russell, Jarks Callis, Paddy Upton was coach, Shane Watson. I guess everyone unfortunately has to move on at some stage, and we'd sort of gone down the path of picking those experienced sort of players. And of course, I was sort of at the back end of my career as well. So ideally speaking, you'd love to be able to get a group of top quality players and keep them together for 4, 5, 6 seasons. Obviously, Nick Cummins, who I mentioned, was instrumental in building the club to where it was. He moved on as well. So obviously there's a changeover. So new people come in with their new ideas, and it just upsets the balance a little bit, I guess. And I'm sure the club's still in a very good place. But I would have loved, I guess in an ideal world, it would have been nice to start 3 or 4 years earlier, so we could then build it up to where it was and then keep it there for a few years and really build that legacy for whoever took it on forward.
Yeah. And I suppose in a slightly different role you've got at Chennai Super Kings, where you're coming in as the batting coach. How do you approach that when there's probably a lot of experienced guys? They all have their personal coaches or their people that they speak to at home. How do you approach that as more of a coaching perspective now?
Yeah, it's a good question. Probably just try not to muck it up, really. You're right. These guys, they know their game inside and out, but particularly our batting group. You know, it's a senior group. And I think we've got Shane Watson, we've got Faf du Plessis, we've got a guy called Ambati Raidu who's played for India. He's in his mid-30s as well, fantastic player. MS Dhoni, excuse me, Dwayne Bravo. These guys, you know, what can I tell them, really? I don't want to be changing them. But basically for me, the coaching side of things is just about developing good relationships, just asking them questions, getting to know them as people, understanding their backgrounds, because that's the other thing about the IPL. It's, you know, we've got a group of people coming from all corners of the earth, different backgrounds, different cultures. So just trying to understand them, build up those friendships and those relationships, and then cricket, just talk really and just ask questions and see, you know, just have open sort of communication between the two, maybe offer one little bit of advice here or there, or but yeah, I don't try and change too much. And look, to be honest, I've got a funny story with that with MS Dhoni. And I thought my coaching career at CSK was over. We were coming into this big qualifying final. It was 1v2. Whoever won that game went into the grand final. We were sort of an old team, so we were hanging on. You know, we needed to win that game just to go straight through to the final. And the analyst came up with this split screen of Rashid Khan, who we were playing the following day. And you know, it was when he was running into bowl, when he had his fingers spread on the ball, it was going to be a leg spinner. And if he run in with his fingers sort of together, it was going to be his wrong-un. And I'm sitting on this information the night before the game. And I'm like, what do I do here? Do I send it through to the batters? Do I not send it through? And I went back and forth in my own mind thinking, if I do send it through and it confuses the guys, do they want to be thinking about this? If I don't send it through and he gets 5 wickets, I'll never forgive myself. And I thought, right, I'm going to send it through. So on the WhatsApp, sort of sent it through. But I did sort of say, look, guys, you may want to use this. You may not. It's up to you. But, you know, it's just information for you. Disregard it if you don't want to use it. It's fine. Anyway, we come to the game and sure enough, MS Dhoni's out there in the middle. Rashid Khan comes on to bowl. MS goes for the big cover drive, through cover, wrong and through the gate, bowled.
No.
And he storms off the field. And I'm just sitting in the dugout on the sidelines. He walks straight up to me, looks me in the eye, and he says, "I'll bat my own way, thanks," and sits down. And as you can imagine, there wasn't much clarity of thought going on in my mind at that stage. My mind was spinning and thinking, oh, this is the end of my coaching career. And anyway, but MS was absolutely fantastic after the game. He said, no, look, the information was great and it was right, but I needed time to process it and I needed time to practice it. So the night before the game probably wasn't the right time for him. Faf du Plessis, on the other hand, said, no, that was awesome. I loved it, you know. But MS, he said, I needed to practice watching the guy run in his hand. But then I thought I saw him running with a ball, with his fingers like this. But then I just forgot, didn't even bother watching the ball after that. So I needed time to go practice watching a bowler running in, look at his hand, then remember to keep watching the ball. So for him, just to work through that process. So it was a good learning experience as a coach, I guess, and on how to deal with sort of different players. But that's probably part of it, is having a good relationship and understanding your different players. And I don't know, it's a good experience anyway.
Gee, that's a tough skill to learn. Probably the biggest player in the biggest league in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, we were lucky enough to have a toured to India with the cricket mentoring bunch last year, and we watched a CSK play Bangalore at Bangalore's home ground, and Virat Kohli, massive team, Indian captain. And it was hilarious. You look around and the entire crowd is basically yellow with MS Dhoni shirts on at an away game. I can't imagine this guy is an absolute god out there. I suppose it's a tough school, but that's exactly how you learn, by putting yourself in those situations. And I'm sure it's made you a better coach now. So we'll wind up with the last few questions. This one I ask most of the guests, and how has your definition of success changed from when you were that little kid running around really wanting to play for WA and then play for Australia to now where you're in the coaching setup and you've made that step, you've been through the ups and the downs. So how has that definition of success actually shifted?
Oh, that's a good question. Tough to answer. Putting me under the pressure here. I prefer to face Dale Steyn on a green top than that.
Oh, goodness.
I think you're right, though. I think your definition of success does change as you get older. So for me personally, as a kid growing up, yep, my definition of success was wear that baggy green cap, play for Australia. No question. It was that was the outcome goal. I think now that I look back, what I cherish the most, or what I crave the most, is respect from my peers, and also to be remembered for the way that I played the game. So I often talk about it with young players now who are at the early stages of the journey, but I quite often say, well, how do you want to be remembered at the end of the game, at the end of your career? Do you want to be remembered for someone that played the game hard, fair, in great spirit, or do you want to be remembered as someone who was an idiot on the field, win at all costs, and you can give examples of players that are going to have that reputation and examples of other players that are completely revered. So, someone like a Sachin Tendulkar, for example, he scored millions and millions and millions of runs. But what I admire most about Sachin Tendulkar is not the runs that he scored. I admire that he is, still a humble guy. He is respectful of the game. He's respectful of the current players. And he is revered in this country, yes, for his runs, but also the way he conducts himself as a person. And so that for me is what success is. If you can come out of the back end of your career, and be sort of respected by your teammates, and where you can go to any part in the world or any cricket ground in the world and run into people that, that are happy to see you and want to catch up and want to have a chat and get that big smile when they see you, and you have a big smile when you see them. For me, that's what success is. And then I guess also just being balanced as you come out of the game. I think it's a really challenging time when you finish playing cricket, especially because I was someone that put so much time and effort and energy into my game. But I'm really grateful, I guess, that I have a balanced life outside the game, have a happy family, a comfortable life. If I never had to, be involved in cricket, I want to be involved in cricket, so that's why I am. But if I didn't, it's not the end of my life, I guess. I've got other things in my life. So I think that's what success is defined for me now.
That's unreal. And Huss, you certainly have lived that. You're a role model both on and off the field for a lot of us. And it's just chatting to one of the young pups, Corey Roccacelli. He's a Wanneroo boy, and he's just earned himself his first Warriors rookie contract, having been playing third grade less than a couple of years ago. And he did tell me your work ethic set the benchmark for what he's doing now. And that's just one of many stories that I've heard, as well as my personal impact. So thank you for all the work you've done. Thank you for your time today. And I'm sure we're still to see the best of Michael Hussey as you carry on into life after cricket.
Good on you, Barbie. Thanks for having me on, and good luck for the WBBL. I hope it goes well. I hope the Stars go well.
Go the Stars. Happy days. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to continue to be part of the Inside Edge project, hit subscribe or leave a comment below. We're also on all major social media platforms. I look forward to having you along next time.